Some stories are meant to help you sleep. This one was never meant to be remembered. If you enjoy slow, mysterious bedtime stories like this, stories that unfold gently while the world grows quiet, take a moment to subscribe and return tomorrow night for another journey into the unknown. And before we begin, notice where you are right now. Are you lying in bed, the room dark except for a faint glow from your screen? Are you listening alone, or is the night breathing softly around you? Maybe you're far from home. Maybe you feel perfectly safe. Wherever you are, let your shoulders relax. Let your breathing slow. There's nothing you need to do but listen. In the year 1346, when the world still believed time moved in straight lines and miracles belonged only to God, there was a valley that refused to behave like the rest of the land. It lay far from kings and cities, hidden between low mountains and ancient forests, a place where fog settled early and left late. Maps rarely agreed on its shape. Some didn't show it at all. The villagers called it Grey Wake Valley. Nothing violent ever happened there. That was the strange part. Crops grew, animals lived long, children were born and grew old, and yet no one stayed after dark unless they had no other choice, because the valley listened. At night, when wind fell silent and fires burned low, the earth itself seemed to hum so softly that you could mistake it for your own blood moving in your ears, a low, patient sound, rhythmic, expectant. For generations, elders warned travelers, do not sleep in the valley, walk through before sunset, or wait until morning. Most listened. One autumn evening, under a pale moon half hidden by clouds, a merchant caravan failed to listen. They entered Grey Wake Valley late, their horses tired, their lanterns dim. The road beneath them felt smoother than any stone path they had ever traveled, too smooth, like something polished by time that had not yet passed. That was when the sound began. At first it felt distant, a vibration more than a noise. The horses stopped walking, their ears flattened. One of them screamed and tried to turn back, snapping its reins. Then the light appeared. Not firelight, not torchlight. A long line of warm, steady glow moved through the fog, level and unbroken, as if someone had drawn a golden line across the darkness. Windows, perfectly shaped, perfectly spaced. The merchant stood frozen as it emerged. A massive iron body followed the light, black, silent, breathing out soft white mist. It moved without wheels anyone could see, gliding along the valley floor like it belonged there. A train. None of them had a word for it. The machine slowed, stopping beside a ruined stone platform no one remembered building. The air grew warm, calm, safe in a way that felt wrong. Doors opened. Inside were people. They sat quietly, dressed in clothing finer than silk, yet shaped unlike anything known. Clean lines, muted colors, unfamiliar cuts. Their faces were pale, calm, empty of fear. Some stared forward. Some looked down on glowing rectangles in their hands. None of them spoke. One of the merchants stepped closer, heart pounding. He raised a hand, unsure why, and then the light folded inward. The doors closed. The machine vanished. No thunder, no fire, no sound. Just empty valley air and silence so complete it rang. By morning, the caravan was gone. No bodies were ever found. Only the road remained, smooth, cold, faintly warm beneath bare feet. The church dismissed the story. Scholars laughed. They said exhaustion and fog created illusions, that men afraid of the dark imagined monsters. But Grey Wake Valley remembered. Over the next 50 years, people began to disappear. A shepherd who followed a sound at night, a monk who stopped to pray, a woman searching for her child near dusk. Always the same pattern. Footprints ending abruptly, lanterns still warm, no struggle, no blood, and sometimes witnesses. An old woman swore she saw the light again in 1362. She described it exactly the same way as the merchants had. Windows, warmth, calm. She said it stopped longer this time. She said one door opened, and inside, every seat was empty. Above the doorway, glowing softly, was a sign written in symbols she did not recognize. She died 3 days later in her sleep, smiling. The road Thomas lived beside had no name. Older villagers claimed it once led somewhere important, but no one could remember where. At night, fog gathered there first, thick and low, as if the ground itself was exhaling. Thomas was 12 when he first heard the sound. It woke him gently, not like a noise, but like a feeling, an awareness that something was moving. His room was dark, the small window open just enough to let in cold air. The sound came from far away, a steady rhythm, slow and patient, as though the night itself had a heartbeat. He sat up in bed, listening. His parents slept on, undisturbed. The house did not creak. No dogs barked. Only that low hum, growing slightly clearer, slightly closer. Thomas dressed without thinking. He did not feel afraid. That was the strangest part. His feet carried him outside, onto the old road, where the fog parted for him as if it recognized his shape. The ground beneath his bare feet was warm. Then the light appeared. It slid through the mist in a straight, perfect line, soft gold, unblinking. Windows followed one after another, stretching farther than Thomas could see. The iron body emerged last, dark and smooth, breathing out a quiet white vapor. The train slowed. It stopped exactly where the old road dipped, at a place where stones once formed a platform. Thomas knew, without knowing how, that it would stop there, that it always did. A door opened. Inside was silence, rows of seats, empty, clean, waiting. Above the doorway glowed a sign written in symbols Thomas could not read, yet somehow understood. It was not a destination, it was a question. He stepped forward. The moment his foot crossed the threshold, the night behind him felt suddenly very far away, like a memory already fading. The door closed without sound. The train began to move. Thomas sat by a window. Outside, the valley stretched and bent, shapes sliding past too slowly or too quickly, as if time itself had lost its pace. He saw things that did not belong together, stone castles dissolving into forests, forests folding into streets lit by lights brighter than the sun. People stood frozen in moments that did not finish. Other passengers began to appear. A monk in rough robes stared at his hands as if surprised to still have them. A woman in wool clutched a lantern that no longer burned. A man in strange modern clothes rubbed his face, whispering a name over and over. None of them aged. None of them slept. They learned slowly, quietly, that the train did not run on tracks, but on moments, on places where time thinned, where centuries brushed against one another and tore slightly at the edges. Sometimes the train stopped. Doors would open onto nights long past or far ahead. Some passengers stepped off. Most did not. Those who left were never seen again, neither forward nor backward in history. The train kept moving. Years, or something like years, passed. Thomas grew used to the hum. It became comforting, like breathing. He learned that the train was not alive, but it was aware. It followed rules older than language. It corrected small mistakes in time, the way water smooths stone. One night, the train slowed more than usual. Through the window, Thomas saw a valley he recognized, Greywake. The platform was there, broken but waiting. Fog rolled low. A monk stood beside the stones, older than Thomas remembered, yet unchanged. Brother Mathieu looked up. Their eyes met. The door opened. Thomas stood, heart steady, understanding settling over him like sleep. This was why he had been taken, not by accident, not by cruelty. He stepped down onto the platform. The air was cold. The hum behind him softened. Before the doors closed, Thomas turned back. The passengers watched him, silent, grateful, afraid. The sign above the door dimmed slightly, as if satisfied. The train vanished. Greywake Valley grew quiet again. In the morning, villagers would pass by and feel a strange calm there. Crops would grow well, children would sleep deeply, and sometimes, late at night, someone would swear they saw a boy standing in the fog, watching the road, making sure the world stayed where it belonged. And far away, far beyond maps and years, the train would continue its journey, carrying the forgotten, the misplaced, the almost lost, moving gently through the dark, never rushing, never stopping for long. If you listen closely now, as sleep begins to pull you under, you might hear it too. That steady hum, not calling you, just passing by. And then, silence.
The silence did not feel empty. It rested over Greywake Valley like a held breath, gentle and deliberate. Thomas stood on the cold stone, fog curling around his ankles, listening, not for the train, but for the valley itself. The hum had faded, yet its echo lingered inside him, a rhythm he realized he would always carry. Brother Mathieu did not speak. He simply nodded, as if this moment had been expected, rehearsed across centuries. His eyes were calm now, no longer searching. "You can hear it, can't you?" the monk said softly. Thomas nodded. They stood together as the fog thinned just enough to reveal the old road. It looked ordinary again. Cracked stone, creeping moss, nothing that would draw a second glance. But Thomas felt the places beneath it, the layers of moments stacked gently atop one another, like pages that could be turned if one knew how. A breeze moved through the valley, not wind, movement, adjustment. Somewhere nearby, something settled into place. Brother Mathieu knelt and pressed his palm to the ground. "It listens better now," he murmured. It always needed someone who could stay awake without being afraid. Thomas swallowed. "Will it come back?" The monk smiled, small and distant. "It never leaves. It only waits elsewhere." A sound drifted through the air then, not the hum of the train, but footsteps, careful, human. A figure emerged from the fog. A woman wrapped in a wool cloak, holding an unlit lantern. Her eyes were wide, but not panicked. She stopped when she saw them. "I heard something, and then I felt calm." Thomas felt it too. A pull, faint but precise, like a thread being gently drawn taut. Brother Mathieu rose slowly. "Then it has begun again." The woman stepped closer, her gaze drawn to Thomas. "Who are you?" He searched for an answer that felt true. "I'm staying." The fog shifted. The ground warmed slightly beneath their feet. Far away, not in distance, but in alignment, the train adjusted its course, just a fraction. Not stopping, not slowing, simply acknowledging. Thomas took a breath,
and felt the valley respond, like a body recognizing its own heartbeat. The night deepened, and the road waited.
The woman shifted the lantern from one hand to the other. Though it was unlit, it felt heavier than it should have been, as if it carried something more than oil and wick. She glanced down at it briefly, then back at Thomas. "It stopped me," she said quietly. "The road. I was walking home, and suddenly I couldn't go any farther. Not forward, not back. Then I saw the light fade, and you." Brother Matthew watched her with a careful gentleness, the way one might watch a flame in a drafty room. "You were meant to arrive just now," he said. "Not earlier, not later." Her brow furrowed. Meant by whom? The monk did not answer immediately. Instead, he looked to Thomas. Thomas felt the question settle on him, not like a weight, but like responsibility. He became aware of the valley again, not just as land, but as a presence. It was listening the way it always had, but now it listened through him. "By the road," Thomas said at last. The words felt right as soon as he spoke them. "By what moves through it." The woman frowned, then gave a short, uncertain laugh. "That's not an answer." "No," the brother Matthew agreed, "but it is the closest one." A low sound moved through the ground then, barely audible, more a vibration than a noise. The woman stiffened. Thomas closed his eyes. He could feel the layers again, the thin places, moments pressed close together like overlapping shadows. Somewhere the train passed near enough to be felt, though not seen. The lantern in the woman's hand flickered to life on its own. She gasped softly, nearly dropping it. The flame burned steady and pale, not yellow or orange, but something in between. It cast light that did not chase away the fog so much as define it, giving the mist edges and depth. Brother Matthew nodded. "You see," he said, "it chooses carefully." The woman looked between them. "I don't understand what's happening." "You don't need to," Thomas said gently. "Not yet." They stood together on the broken platform, three figures held in a quiet pocket of night. From beyond the fog came the distant sounds of the world continuing as it always had, a night bird calling, leaves shifting, the faint murmur of a stream. Ordinary sounds, untouched. The hum beneath it all remained. After a while, the woman spoke again. "If I step forward, will I disappear?" Thomas considered the question carefully. He could feel the road responding to it, subtle and patient. "No," he said, "you'll arrive." She studied his face, searching for something, certainty perhaps, or fear. She found neither. Finally, she nodded. "I'm Anna, if names still matter." "They do," Brother Matthew replied, "more than places." Anna took a step closer to the edge of the platform. The lantern light stretched ahead of her, illuminating a section of road that looked newly formed, stones smooth and warm, as if recently uncovered. Thomas felt a shift inside himself, not urgency, but readiness. "I'll walk with you," he said. Brother Matthew inclined his head, "and I will remain." Anna hesitated. "Alone?" The monk smiled, peaceful. Never alone, just in the right moment. Thomas and Anna stepped down together. The road accepted their weight without sound. As they walked, the fog thinned around them, retreating just enough to show the path ahead. With each step, Thomas felt the valley adjust, small corrections, tiny realignments, like a clock setting itself true. Anna walked slowly, carefully. "Where does it go?" she asked. "Where it needs to," Thomas replied. "Tonight it's not far." They passed shapes half seen in the mist, stones that looked briefly like walls, trees that hinted at towers, impressions of doors that never fully appeared. Anna glanced at them but did not stop. After a time, she said, "I feel like I've been here before." "You have, just not all at once."
The hum grew slightly clearer, though still distant. It was not approaching exactly, more like aligning, moving parallel to them. They reached a place where the road dipped gently. The lantern light revealed a faint mark in the stone, no more than a shallow outline. A doorway. Anna stopped. This is it, isn't it? Yes. She took a breath, steadying herself. Will I remember? Thomas paused. This mattered. You'll remember what you need. The rest will feel like a dream, but it won't trouble you. She nodded, then surprised him by smiling. That's all I ask. She stepped forward. The doorway did not open so much as give way. The stone softened, light folding inward, creating space without breaking shape. Warm air flowed out, carrying the same calm Thomas remembered from the train. Anna turned back once. Will you be all right? Thomas looked past her, down the road, back towards the platform where Brother Matthew stood watching, and farther still, into the valley, listening and awake. Yes, he said, this is where I stay. She stepped through. The doorway closed, stone settling back into place, leaving no mark behind. The hum shifted again, satisfied. Thomas stood alone on the road. He felt no loneliness, only balance. Slowly he turned and walked back towards the platform. The fog welcomed him, reshaping itself around his steps. When he reached the stones, Brother Matthew was still there, hands folded, eyes kind. She arrived? The monk said. Yes. Brother Matthew exhaled, a long, peaceful breath. Then the night may continue. They stood together, listening as the valley settled into its quiet rhythm once more. Far away the train moved on, unseen, unheard by most, its passage now smooth, uninterrupted. And Thomas remained, awake and unafraid, standing where moments met, keeping the road true as the world slept.
The fog thickened again, but it no longer felt aimless. It moved with intention now, drifting in slow currents that seemed to follow the shape of the road and the rise of the stones. Thomas noticed how naturally his breathing matched its pace. In, out, nothing hurried, nothing delayed. Brother Matthew sat on the edge of the platform, lowering himself carefully as if his bones remembered age, even if time no longer pressed on them. He rested his hands on his knees and looked out into the valley. You felt it change, he said. Yes, Thomas replied, just a little. That is how it always is, the monk said. Never all at once. Too much correction breaks things. Thomas nodded. He had sensed that too. The valley did not want perfection. It wanted balance, small, patient adjustments made over long stretches of night. They stood in silence for a while. The hum beneath the ground softened further, sinking to a level just above nothing. Ordinary night sounds returned more clearly now, as if given permission. Then Thomas felt it. Not sound, not light, attention. He straightened slightly. Someone's near. Brother Matthew did not look surprised. Yes, they often come in pairs, or not at all. From the fog came the faint crunch of footsteps on stone, slow, careful. Whoever it was, they were afraid, but not enough to turn back. A man emerged, wrapped in a traveler's cloak, his beard damp with mist. He stopped when he saw them, relief and uncertainty crossing his face at once. I thought I was lost, the man said. The road wouldn't behave. It kept changing. You're not lost, Thomas said gently. You're early. The man frowned. Early for what? Brother Matthew rose. For understanding. The traveler laughed weakly. That doesn't help. No, the monk agreed, but it's honest. The man's gaze drifted to Thomas. Something in his expression shifted.
Not recognition exactly, but resonance. "You're not like the others." Thomas considered. "Neither are you." The man swallowed. "My name is Elias." Thomas felt the valley respond faintly at the sound, as if testing it. Names still mattered. "I'm Thomas," he said. "This is Brother Matthew." Elias nodded to the monk, then looked around. "I heard something earlier, a vibration, like a distant storm." Thomas felt the hum stir slightly, acknowledging itself. "You heard the train," he said. "The what?" "The thing that passes through. Not everyone can sense it. Fewer still are noticed by it." Elias rubbed his hands together, grounding himself. "I don't want to disappear." "You won't," Thomas said immediately. The certainty surprised even him, but it held. "Not tonight." Elias studied his face. "You sound sure." "I am." The road beneath them warmed subtly, as if agreeing. Brother Matthew gestured toward the platform. "Sit," he said to Elias. "When the valley brings you here, it is best not to rush away." Elias hesitated, then obeyed. He sat, shoulders slumping as tension finally released. "I was trying to get home," he said, "but every turn felt wrong, like the night kept nudging me." Thomas smiled faintly. "It does that." They waited. Minutes passed, or something like minutes. The fog shifted, opening narrow windows of clarity, glimpses of paths that might have been taken, moments that nearly happened. Thomas saw flashes of Elias on different roads, at different ages, each one slightly out of place. The valley was choosing. Elias shivered. "I feel like something is looking through me." "It is," Brother Matthew said calmly, "but not to judge, only to place." The hum deepened again, not louder, just closer. Thomas closed his eyes and felt its movement, not through space, but through alignment. The train was passing near another thin place, adjusting its course. "Will it stop?" Elias asked. "No," Thomas said, "not for you." Relief washed over the man's face. "Good." Thomas hesitated. Then, carefully, he added, "But it may leave something behind." The ground before them shimmered faintly, not light, but possibility. A narrow shape formed in the air, like the suggestion of a door, not yet real. Elias stared. "What is that?" "A choice," Brother Matthew said. Thomas felt the valley press gently against him, waiting. He stepped forward, placing his hand just beside the shimmer, not touching it. "This doesn't take you away," he said to Elias. "It brings you closer, to where you belong now, not where you were trying to go." Elias's breath came shallow. "What if I don't step through?" "Then the road will release you," Thomas said. "You'll find your way home. This night will blur. You'll dream of fog and warmth and forget the rest." Elias looked down at his hands. They trembled, but less than before. "And if I do?" Thomas met his eyes. "Then something inside you will settle. You'll wake tomorrow knowing which direction is yours, even if you can't explain why." Silence stretched. The hum held steady, waiting. Finally, Elias stood. He approached the shimmer, stopping just short of it. The fog did not rush back after Elias left. It drifted in gradually, like water finding its level, smoothing the space he had passed through until the road looked as it always had, unremarkable, patient, quietly awake. Thomas felt the settling happen inside himself as well. Each arrival, each departure left a faint adjustment, like a knot loosened just enough. He wondered, not for the first time, how many such knots the world carried without realizing it. Brother Matthew returned to his place at the edge of the platform and sat again. He seemed smaller somehow, not diminished, but closer to the stones, as if gravity had finally convinced him it was allowed to do its work. "You'll notice it more now," the monk said. "What?" Thomas asked. "The moments that almost happen." Thomas closed his eyes and listened, not with his ears, but with the sense the valley had given him. He felt them then, threads of intention brushing past one another, decisions approaching contact and then veering away, a cart that would not overturn, a word that would not be spoken, a step delayed by half a breath. "Yes," Thomas said softly, "I feel them." "They gather at night," Brother Matthew said. "That's when the world loosens its grip." The hum beneath the ground shifted again, so faint it might have been imagined. Thomas recognized it as acknowledgement. The train was farther now, but still within the same broad alignment, moving along its long, careful curve. A change passed through the air, subtle but distinct. Thomas opened his eyes. Someone else was coming. This presence felt different from Elias, less anxious, more inward. The footsteps were slower, almost hesitant, as if each step required permission. A young woman emerged from the fog, her hair pulled back loosely, her cloak too thin for the cold. She carried nothing, no lantern, no pack. Her eyes were focused on the ground ahead of her, following the faintest suggestion of the road. She stopped when she reached the platform and looked up at Thomas. Her gaze sharpened, not with fear, but with recognition so sudden it startled him. "Oh," she said quietly, "there you are." Thomas blinked. "Do I know you?" She smiled faintly. "Not yet." Brother Matthew rose slowly. He studied her for a long moment, then inclined his head with unmistakable respect. "You arrived sooner than expected," he said. She shrugged gently. "I took a wrong turn." The valley stirred at that, an amused ripple almost. Thomas felt a pressure behind his eyes, a sense of overlap. "You've been here before," he said. "Yes, and not." She stepped closer, standing beside him on the platform. The stones warmed under her feet without hesitation, as if they had been waiting. "What's your name?" Thomas asked. She hesitated, then said, "Clara. It's close enough." Brother Matthew watched them both. "You're not here to pass through," he said to her. "You're here to assist." Clara's smile deepened. "I was hoping you'd say that." Thomas felt something click into place, not a realization, but a confirmation. "You can hear it too," he said. "The hum." She nodded. "Always have. I used to think it was my pulse." The hum deepened slightly, not louder, but more present, as if leaning closer to listen. Clara turned toward the valley. "You're keeping it balanced," she said to Thomas, "but you're doing it alone." "I'm not," he said, glancing at Brother Matthew. The monk smiled kindly. "My role is nearly finished." Thomas looked at him sharply. "You said—" "I said I would remain," Brother Matthew replied, "and I have, longer than most, but staying does not always mean the same thing." The fog thickened around the platform, softening edges. The night felt closer, more intimate. Clara placed a hand lightly on the stone railing. "It doesn't need 3, she said gently. "It needs 2, one to listen, one to remember." Thomas felt a faint tightening in his chest. "Remember what?" Clara looked at him then, truly looked. "The train," she said. "Not where it goes, but why it moves." The hum shifted again, uneasy but attentive. Brother Matthew exhaled slowly. "It was never meant to carry passengers," he said. "That was a consequence, not a purpose." Thomas felt the truth of it settle in. "It corrects," he said. "It smooths time." "Yes," Clara said, "but it also bears witness. It remembers the versions of the world that almost were." A quiet passed between them, dense with understanding. Thomas imagined all those near misses, all those unrealized paths, riding silently along the train's endless route. Brother Matthew stepped back, closer to the fog. "I held the place," he said. "You hold the listening. Clara will hold the memory." "And you?" Thomas asked. The monk smiled, peaceful. "I will rest." The valley responded, not with resistance, but acceptance. The stones beneath Brother Matthew cooled slightly, releasing him. He took one last look at Thomas, then at Clara. "You'll do well, both of you." He stepped into the fog. For a moment, Thomas felt the urge to call out, but the valley did not echo it back, and he understood. Brother Matthew had not gone away. He had gone in. The hum softened, settling into a new equilibrium. Clara stood beside Thomas, quiet now. "It will feel different," she said. "Lighter, heavier, both." I nodded. "What do we do when no one comes?" Clara smiled faintly. "We listen anyway." They stood. The night held them close, not oppressive, not cold, but like a living canopy of mist and stillness. Thomas felt each breath echo through the valley, carrying the subtle tremors of things nearly forgotten. The stones beneath their feet were warm, almost imperceptibly, as if the earth remembered their presence and had chosen to cradle it. Clara moved a small step closer, though neither of them spoke. She raised her hand slightly, feeling the air between them, as if measuring the distance the fog allowed without disruption. Thomas felt it too, the gentle pressure of expectation, the valley testing their awareness. It was not a threat, merely a query. Do you belong here? Do you hear it, truly? "Yes," Thomas said softly. The valley seemed to nod, subtle, imperceptible. A thread of movement in the fog shifted, revealing a shape ahead. Not a door this time, not a path distinct from the road. It was more like an invitation, a low arch of air and shadow, the kind that a world halfway awake might conjure if it wanted attention. Clara noticed it first. "Do you feel that?" she whispered. Thomas did, a faint vibration, not in the ground, but in the space around them. The air itself seemed heavier here, focused. It was the hum again, distant but precise, threading through the night like a pulse only they could hear. "It's closer," Thomas said, "but not here yet." They advanced slowly toward the arch, aware with each step that the road beneath them was subtly changing. Stones shifted, aligning to their pace, the fog curling around their feet in tiny, careful waves. For the first time, Thomas realized that the valley was not simply holding the road, it was guiding it, shaping their motion as much as their perception. A whisper floated through the mist, soft and low, so faint Thomas had to listen twice. "Welcome," it said, not from a mouth, but from the valley itself, every element of it participating. Stones, fog, air, the hum far below, all seemed to speak in unison. Clara drew in a slow breath. "It's speaking." Thomas nodded. "Not words exactly. Intent." The arch grew more distinct, the air around it shimmering lightly. Thomas noticed edges forming, almost like glass, though no one could touch it. Shadows moved along the inner curve, flickering, too quick to interpret as real figures, yet too structured to be random. "This is a threshold," Clara said, voice barely audible. "The train passes through these places, not for us, but because they exist." Thomas followed her gaze. He could feel the past and future layering here, not just moments that almost happened, but entire spans of days and nights folding against one another, thin and transparent. Some of them contained lives that had never been lived, choices never made, and yet the valley held them with gentle insistence. "Do we step through?" he asked. Clara hesitated. "It's not a crossing for passage. It's a moment to witness, to remember, and perhaps to correct." The words felt heavy in the air. Thomas realized the responsibility was deeper than he had imagined. It was not merely keeping the road aligned. It was tending the folds of time itself, noticing what the train might see but leave behind, understanding what had been nearly lost. A vibration passed through the stones beneath their feet, subtle but urgent. Thomas and Clara instinctively paused. The arch responded, the shadows flaring slightly, revealing a faint glow at its apex. The hum deepened, not louder, but more intimate, threading through the night and brushing against their consciousness. "It's waiting," Thomas said softly. Clara nodded, silent. She extended her hand, fingertips brushing the air at the edge of the arch. It felt cool, not cold, and almost alive, pressing gently back, testing her. Thomas did the same. The arch responded, opening slightly, edges like liquid stone, revealing a corridor of mist stretching ahead, deeper and older than the fog around them. Together they stepped closer. Each footfall was deliberate, measured, as if the valley itself counted their steps and approved them. Thomas felt the thin space hum beneath his feet, vibrating, not with sound, but with something more elemental, alignment, truth, patience. Within the corridor, glimpses of the train flickered, golden light, rows of empty seats, shadows moving too quickly to define, and a soft, persistent pulse that seemed almost human. He realized then that this was not a vision to be feared. It was a memory the valley had conjured for them, something the train carried along its route, now available to witness and understand. Clara whispered, "It's more beautiful than I imagined." Yes, and fragile, too fragile for most to see. The corridor extended endlessly in both directions, folding back on itself in impossible ways. They could see figures frozen mid-motion, scenes of life paused like a snapshot, a child reaching for a stone that would never fall, a merchant balancing a basket that would never tip, a lone monk kneeling in prayer that had never finished. Thomas understood that their task was not to interfere, it was to observe, to remember, to carry the quiet knowledge forward without altering the order, yet with awareness enough to notice what might otherwise be lost. A soft shift in the fog behind them reminded him of the valley itself, patient, sentient, waiting. The hum followed, threading around them, around the moments paused, holding all in balance. He glanced at Clara. She was calm, though her eyes reflected the immensity of the corridor, the weight of all those lives folded into a single breathing moment. "We watch," she whispered. "We remember." "Yes," Thomas said, "and we listen." The air thickened slightly, a gentle pressure that was neither wind nor gravity. It was a tension, waiting to confirm their understanding. They stayed, standing in the corridor, hands near the edges of the shimmering arch, listening to the rhythm of moments almost lived, almost lost, and carried along the trackless path of the train that moved through the valley silently, patiently, eternally. Time itself seemed to slow, compressing and stretching together, and Thomas felt the valley breathe with them, a pulse in the dark that spoke of countless nights, countless travelers, and countless choices, all preserved, all remembered. And so they stood, silent witnesses in the corridor of mist and memory, while the world beyond the valley continued unawares, and the hum held steady, steady as a heartbeat beneath the stones, threading through the night, carrying all that must not be forgotten.
Thomas and Clara remained still in the corridor.
their awareness stretching outward, sensing the faint tremors of countless near moments. Each fragment of possibility hung in the air like delicate glass, shimmering just enough to be noticed, yet fragile enough to break with careless thought. The hum beneath the stones pulsed again, a subtle cadence now almost like breathing. Thomas realized he could feel it in his chest, not just underfoot, and that Clara could feel it too. They had become, in some small way, conduits, listeners and keepers of the thin places. A flicker passed through the mist ahead, the train, distant but unmistakable. Golden windows glinted faintly, rows of empty seats stretching beyond the fog, and a pale vapor drifted upward like smoke from a distant hearth. The sight stirred something within both of them. Recognition, awe, a quiet reverence. "Do you think it knows we're here?" Clara whispered. Thomas considered. It does, not like a person knows, but it senses alignment, attention, purpose. The hum beneath the stones responded, edges of mist shifting subtly, guiding them toward a cluster of moments frozen mid-motion. Thomas noticed a small boy holding a toy sword, standing on a stone path that didn't quite exist anywhere else. His hand was stretched toward something just out of reach, a choice never made, a path never taken. Clara stepped closer to him, though she did not touch him. "He needs to be seen," she said softly. "Not taken, not corrected, just seen." Thomas nodded, and remembered. That is enough. They moved along the corridor carefully, each footfall deliberate. Other figures appeared, a woman lifting a basket of fruit that would always tip, a man in a cloak stepping onto a bridge that had no end, a monk kneeling beside a river that never flowed. All were suspended between worlds, moments compressed and preserved. As they watched, Thomas felt a faint pressure in the valley behind them. The fog shifted slightly, almost like a sigh. He realized that the valley itself was monitoring their attention, approving their presence, ensuring they were not careless. Clara whispered, "It's teaching us." "Yes," Thomas agreed. "How to listen, how to hold." They reached a cluster of moments that shimmered brighter than the rest, threads of gold curling faintly around the edges. Thomas recognized one immediately. It was the merchant caravan from long ago, the very one that had first seen the Iron Serpent. Horses frozen mid-step, wheels suspended inches above the ground, lanterns glowing but unmoving. Clara pointed subtly. "We were here for this," she said. "We are the witnesses it needed." Thomas knelt carefully, bringing his hands close to the shimmering outlines without touching them. "It trusts us," whispered Thomas, "not to intervene, not to change, only to remember." A vibration moved through the ground then, a faint echo, not the hum itself, but a signal. The train was passing nearby, its presence brushing through the corridor without entering fully. Thomas could feel its momentum in the subtle pressure in the air, the way the mist shifted slightly, as though something immense was sliding past, brushing the edges of reality. Clara exhaled slowly. "It's so much larger than we imagine." "Yes," Thomas said, "but it carries what matters." Another figure appeared, a woman in tattered robes, kneeling as if in prayer. Her hands trembled slightly, though she was frozen. Thomas and Clara approached, careful to maintain distance. Her face lifted faintly toward the corridor, and though her eyes did not move, he felt her awareness, her longing. "You are here," he whispered. A faint ripple moved along the threads of her moment, a subtle alignment. It felt like acknowledgement. She was seen, and in that recognition, the pressure around them lightened. Clara placed a hand gently near the mist. "Each one we honor strengthens the corridor. Without attention, they fade, or worse, they unbalance the road." Thomas nodded. He realized the truth of it. This was not merely a witness task. It was maintenance, care, guardianship. Every small act of acknowledgement, every recognition of a frozen choice held the valley in alignment. Time stretched and curved around them. The The distant hum threaded through every pause and breath. Thomas and Clara moved slowly, steadily from cluster to cluster, never touching, never interfering, only observing, only remembering. The corridor shifted subtly, folding back on itself in impossible geometry. Moments layered in impossible proximity. Children walking paths that would never cross. Merchants moving beside saints who had not yet been born. The iron serpent glimpsed as a golden blur in multiple eras at once. Thomas stopped briefly, feeling a weight in his chest. "Do you ever wonder why it chooses these moments?" he asked. Clara shook her head slightly. "I think it chooses what is fragile, what is nearly lost, what matters most, even if no one else notices." The hum deepened, threading through the corridor in soft pulses. Thomas felt it as a pulse in his chest, in the soles of his feet, in the air around him. The valley, the train, and the suspended moments were all aligned, balanced on a careful, invisible scale. They moved together, silently, honoring each fragment. And as the night deepened, the corridor held them, the fog curling around them like a cloak, the hum threading beneath the stones and through the unseen pathways of the valley. Hours, or something like hours, passed, though time was no longer measurable here. Thomas and Clara remained vigilant, listening, witnessing, remembering. Each figure they observed, each frozen choice reinforced the fragile alignment of the road, the valley, and the train that moved quietly, invisibly through the thin places where the world almost unraveled. And still, the iron serpent glided through distant corridors of time, unseen by most, carrying what was nearly lost, brushing against lives paused, and threading its soft, patient hum through the living world and the remembered one alike. Thomas and Clara, together, held the quiet with steady hands, their senses attuned to the delicate pulse of the valley, their awareness stretching to the farthest edges of the corridor. And the valley exhaled gently around them, patient, alive, and perfectly aligned.
The corridor did not close when the train passed. It lingered, stretched thin and breathing, as though reluctant to release what had gathered there. Thomas felt the air shift slightly behind him, not a retreat, but a soft rearranging, like pages being set back into order after being read. Clara remained still, her attention fixed on a cluster of moments hovering just ahead. They pulsed faintly, threads of gold and gray interwoven so closely that Thomas could feel the tension between them. "Here," she murmured. "This one is unstable." Thomas stepped beside her. The moment resolved into clarity, not sharp but legible. A narrow bridge over a shallow ravine. A man halfway across, foot raised, balance uncertain. On one side of the bridge, a village bathed in early morning light. On the other, forest shadow and fog. The man's face held a decision that had never settled. "He didn't fall," Thomas said. "No," Clara replied. "He turned back or went forward. Both nearly happened." The air around the moment trembled faintly, like a held note. Thomas felt the valley listening more closely now, its attention narrowing. "What does it need?" he asked. Clara closed her eyes. "Stillness, just long enough for it to choose." They stood without moving. Thomas slowed his breathing deliberately, letting it match the hum beneath the stones. Clara did the same. The corridor responded, its edges smoothing, its light steadying. The moment shivered once more, then settled. The man on the bridge lowered his foot, direction chosen, weight distributed. The threads loosened, their glow softening to a calm, muted sheen. Thomas exhaled. Clara opened her eyes. "That's how it works," she said quietly. "Not by pushing, by holding." The hum eased, as if in agreement. They moved on. The corridor subtly reshaped itself as they walked, opening where their attention drifted, closing gently behind them. Thomas noticed that some moments were easier to witness than others. Joy hovered lightly, requiring little effort. Grief was heavier,
denser, its edges rough with unspent emotion. But even there, the act of seeing seemed to soothe, to give shape where there had been strain. At one point, Thomas paused, hand lifting instinctively. He felt something tug at his awareness, not ahead, but to the side. "Clara," he said softly, "do you feel that?" She nodded. "Yes, that one has been waiting." They turned together. The fog parted just enough to reveal a solitary figure sitting on a stone step that led nowhere. A young girl, knees drawn to her chest, hair falling forward to hide her face. Around her, the moment flickered erratically, edges unstable, light pulsing unevenly. Thomas felt a tightness in his chest. "She's frightened. She's forgotten," Clara said gently. They approached slowly, careful not to rush the fragile space. The girl did not look up, but the moment responded to their presence, its pulsing slowing slightly. Thomas crouched, lowering himself to her level without crossing the boundary of the moment. "You don't have to decide right now," he said, voice barely above a whisper. The girl's shoulders trembled. Clara knelt beside him. "You're allowed to rest," she added. "This place will hold you until you're ready." The air softened, the flicker steadied, light evening out into a calm glow. The girl's breathing slowed, though she remained still. They did not wait for more. As they rose and stepped away, Thomas felt something ease, not just in the corridor, but deeper, like a knot loosening in the valley itself. The hum beneath them deepened briefly, then returned to its steady cadence. "You felt that," Clara said. "Yes." "It remembered her," she said. "That's enough for now." They moved on. The corridor began to thin gradually, not closing abruptly, but stretching, its moments drifting farther apart. Thomas sensed that their time here was nearing a natural pause, not an ending, just a settling. Ahead, the golden threads grew fainter, the frozen scenes softened, becoming impressions rather than fully held moments. The train's presence receded further, its influence still present but less immediate. Thomas slowed. "When it fades, will we forget?" Clara shook her head. "No, but it will feel quieter, like holding something warm after it's been set down." The corridor exhaled around them, a long, gentle release. The mist thickened, reshaping itself into the familiar contours of Greywake. The arch dissolved without ceremony, leaving only fog, stone, and night. They stood once more on the platform. The valley felt different now, lighter but also deeper, as if something essential had been reinforced beneath the surface. The road lay calm and ordinary, yet Thomas could feel its readiness, its careful alignment. Clara looked out into the fog. "It will call again," she said. "Not loudly, not soon, but it will." Thomas nodded. "We'll hear it." They remained there together, side by side, listening to the quiet that followed meaningful work. The hum persisted beneath it all, steady and patient, threading through the stones, the road, and the unseen distances where the train continued its endless, careful journey. The night held them gently, and the valley breathed on, awake and balanced, as Thomas listened and Clara remembered, neither rushing, neither resting, simply present, where moments met and held. The fog thinned a little more, enough to reveal the slope of the valley beyond the platform. The land looked ordinary again, grass dark with dew, stones half buried, the faint suggestion of a path that most eyes would pass over without pause. But Thomas could still feel the alignment beneath it, the quiet readiness of the road. Clara shifted her weight slightly. "It's quieter now," she said. Not disappointed, simply observant. "Yes," Thomas replied, "but not empty." They stood without moving, letting the stillness settle properly. Rushing it would disturb the balance. Leaving too soon would do the same. The valley preferred patience. A sound reached them then, not footsteps, not the hum, but something gentler, fabric brushing against stone, a human sound. Thomas turned his head first. An old man emerged from the fog at the edge of the road. He walked slowly, leaning on a crooked staff, his movements careful but not weak. His eyes were sharp, alert, taking in the platform, the stones, the two figures standing there as if this were exactly where he expected to arrive. He stopped a few steps away and nodded once, politely. "Evening," he said. "Good evening," Clara replied, her voice warm but measured. The man glanced around, then back at them. "I wondered when this place would show itself again." Thomas felt the valley's attention narrow. This was not a wandering traveler, not lost, not early or late. "You've been here before," Thomas said. The old man smiled faintly. "Once, a long time ago, or a short one, hard to say." Brother Matthew's words echoed faintly in Thomas's memory. They arrive when they are meant to. "What brings you tonight?" Clara asked. The man rested both hands on his staff. "I felt a correction," he said simply, "like a stitch pulled tight after being loose for years. I follow those." Thomas felt a ripple beneath his feet, subtle but approving. "You listen," he said. The man inclined his head. "I try." They waited. The valley did not hurry him. Finally, he looked past them, into the fog, as if seeing something just out of reach. "It's still moving, isn't it?" "Yes," Thomas said. "It always is." The man's shoulders eased. "Good, then we're still in time." Clara glanced at Thomas, then back at the man. "You won't be staying," she said. "No," I agreed. "I never do." The hum stirred faintly at the edge of awareness, not approaching, not retreating, simply present. The old man turned slightly, aligning himself with the road. Before stepping away, he looked back at them. "You're doing careful work, the kind that doesn't show." "That's usually the kind that matters," Clara replied. He smiled at that, then walked on. The fog opened for him without resistance, the road smoothing beneath his steps. Within moments, he was gone, as if absorbed gently into the night. Thomas exhaled slowly. Clara remained quiet for a long moment. Some people touch the edges and move on. Others stay where the edges are. Thomas nodded, and some make sure they don't tear. The valley settled again, satisfied. The hum softened further, retreating into its deeper layer, like a pulse beneath sleep. Ordinary night sounds rose to the surface, an owl calling, wind through grass, the distant rush of water. Clara sat on the edge of the platform, drawing her cloak closer around her shoulders. Thomas joined her, the stone cool now, but steady. "Will it be like this every night?" he asked. "No," she said. "Some nights will be quiet. Some will be busy. Some will feel like nothing happens at all." "And all of them matter," Thomas said. She smiled faintly. "Exactly." They sat together, listening, not for something to arrive, but for what already was. The valley did not demand constant attention, only presence, awareness without strain. Time passed in small, gentle increments. The fog shifted. The stars moved, barely perceptible through the mist. Somewhere far away, beyond distance and direction, the train continued its endless glide, windows glowing softly, carrying what could not be lost, guided by alignments few would ever notice. And in Graywake Valley, Thomas and Clara remained, listening, remembering, holding the quiet line between moments, while the night deepened, unafraid, and the world rested safely in its careful balance.